So thank you so much for joining. And Justin, thank you so much for joining me. First of all, I want to say what an absolute pleasure it was to watch the movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I had a long conversation with Tovino Thomas about it. He, of course, told me that he wanted to tell the VFX guys that he saved them 50 lakh on the on the special effects costs. So perhaps I'd like to start off with that itself. Basil, he said that he saved that, especially in that sequence in the fair, when he's throwing the rings on the objects. But the whole idea of practical effects and how you can actually save money doing that. Perhaps you can start off with that. And then, of course, we'll talk a little more about the whole idea of an Indian superhero and what it took to make it. Basil.
So, hi, everyone. Hi, Kaveree. Thank you so much. Thank you. Coming to this VFX scenario, from the very beginning, we had this plan of doing it with practical effects for everything possible. So in terms of, even though we are telling a superhero genre, we are telling a superhero story, we wanted to make it as grounded as possible in terms of everything. So you don't have to feel like you cannot just get detached from the story because of poor VFX or poor action. So because it's a superhero genre, it demands something like that. People expect something like that. So you cannot deny the fact that people's expectations can be low for a superhero movie. So we had this in mind.
Even if he's wearing a lungi and shirt, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. VFX and everything should be technically perfect for a genre. Otherwise, we shouldn't do it. If you're doing it, do it well, or else you shouldn't do it. So that was the first thing which came to our mind. Should we do it or not? But just then from our gut feeling that we can do it, we'll just give a try. Even if it's a risky attempt, with the budget we have in Malayalam, trying a superhero genre, which is the biggest genre in the world, the biggest commercial genre in the world. So, but we had the good support from the producer and also Andrew Dcrus, our VFX supervisor, who is very clever in making things happen with practical effects. He never wanted to make anything with VFX. He never suggested anything. Oh, let's do this in 3D. Let's do this in VFX. He never suggested. He wanted everything to be practical. So we spent time on pre-production. Most of the time, we spend almost a year for pre-production, for writing as well as VFX and pre-visualizations, cinematics, everything possible from our end, whichever technology is available to us. And also these practical effects like Tovino throwing the ring during the carnival or Tovino grabbing the fan, the ceiling fan.
He said he did it with his bare hands.
Someone
is just asking what's the name of the movie. Guys, Minnal Murali. If you've not watched it, please go and watch it now. It is a fantastic film. It's got humor, a lot of emotion and a lot of wonderful effects and some terrific writing as well. So sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify.
And also
that whole how much did Tovino have to practice to get those rings on the rice cooker and all?
He used during our pre-production, he was in the middle of some other shoot, so he always sent me these videos of him doing all these tricks and something in the middle of other movie shoots and everything. So he'll be like, hey, see, I've done this myself. Oh, see, I'm training for that was the kind of training he had to be like a superhero. Eventually, I thought he is a superhero after all. With all the efforts he have taken, he have done so many superheroics, like shooting the balloons. That's something, it's fine. It's okay. We can imagine someone doing that. But throwing the ring to the objects without seeing it, that's something you have to train. You can see and watch the object and throw, but without seeing it, it's very difficult to throw the things. And grabbing the ceiling fan. Also, so many jumps and steps from the rooftops and everything. He took that risk of doing it without drops and everything. So he in fact have saved so much of VFX budget. Also, our art department. We use mostly with ropes and threads to get the shivering effect, the telekinesis effect, and everything. When the villain is doing an action, the door behind is getting closed, or he's holding a scissor in front of the other character, which is vibrating the air. Everything was done with ropes, and it just was the rope removal was required. So as much as possible, we have done that. That was like big contribution from Andrew. We never wanted to detach the movie from the emotional part. Right. So from the very beginning in the writing process, our first priority was to make the movie work as a screenplay, as a script. From the limited, but we know the budget is limited, but even for the Malayalam movie perspective, it's big. But for a normal movie, for a superhero genre, it's small, to be frank. But so we thought you cannot just spend money on VFX and action alone because this is a superhero movie. You cannot go ahead without a solid script or solid emotional attachment to the characters. If that works well, and then we get the VFX and stunt gets right, that's a bonus. So the first thing, even if it's a superhero movie, whatever the genre we are talking about, but since this is a superhero, that should work, and everything else should be an X factor for the movie. That should work only as an X factor. If the VFX and stunt sequences are taken out, the movie should work as a movie, proper movie, not as some VFX extravaganza. We don't want to spend money on that. So we have seen examples like big budget movies with so many crores, like 300, 350 crores, and spending so much on unnecessary VFX and action sequences without getting attached to the characters. So we took that as example, like without spending time on pre-production, you are spending so much of time on shooting and post-production and budget. That's something waste of an effort from everyone. So that was the first priority from the very beginning we had.
So Andrew Dcrus from Mindstein Studios. Why is it called Mindstein?
So that's it's a mixture of mind and Einstein. So we just thought it would sound nice. So
nice.
That was the idea.
Where are you based, Andrew?
So right now we are based off of in Cochin. We used to be in Chennai, but the pandemic showed us that we didn't really need to be in Chennai, and now it's
be anywhere in the
world. So we all decided to move to Cochin now. Yes.
So now tell me, at what stage did you sort of collaborate? Were you on board from the very beginning, and what was the collaboration like?
So Basil and I have worked in his previous 2 films as well. So I think once Basil he was quite sure of that he was going to make the superhero film. He gave us a call and we spoke about it on the phone, and we had this initial discussion. He called me and told me we're planning on making a superhero film, and this is the premise of it. It's going to be a very grounded setting, and then we were involved from the beginning itself. I'd like to believe that's how it was. He called us as soon as he was sure he was making the film.
Did you at any point say, what the hell am I doing with this guy in his mundu and shirt and
No. I completely understand the reasoning behind why as Malayalis or why as Indians we would want a superhero to be grounded. Because it wouldn't make sense, right, for a superhero
and
to
no
be
fancy cars. Poor guy, all he does is travel by bus or cycle,
Yes, so I think that helps people. It helps people to relate to the film even more. The more grounded it is, the more Indian it is. I think that's what we needed, in terms of an Indian superhero. And I guess Arun and Justin have obviously, been very clever in writing that in. Basil's treatment for it was obviously what it needed as well.
Right. May I just get in the 2 writers, Justin and Arun, and then we'll come back to you, Andrew, and talk a little more in detail about the special effects that you did use. Not the ones that you didn't use, but the ones that you did use. So, Justin, when you guys were writing it, how much of it was about the action and how much of it was about the emotion, and how did you write it? Like, did you say, okay, this is where the action takes place? Talk a little about the process.
Hi, everyone. So, the script, we took around almost a year to complete the script, and the
idea came from Basil.
No,
I don't.
Idea. So 4 years back, I saw one meme. In the meme, Batman with a lungi. So from that picture, I got that idea.
You mean Christian Bale in a lungi?
So from that, I got an idea that why can't we place a local superhero in Kerala? So that was the basic idea. Then I pitched with Basil. And then the project, then Justin joined, and this we started screenplay, and it took around a year, and we wrote almost 45 draft, I think.
What?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
So our major problem was throughout our writing, our first major problem was how to crack this antagonist. So yeah, so I think we spent 6 or 7 months, cracking this antagonist. Finally, we got the Shibu, and after that it was easy.
But why did it take you so long to develop Shibu's character?
Actually, we wanted the villain to be more related to our background. So we cannot place a villain that is not more relative to our customer or our system.
Right.
So first, basically,
and he's a villain who has quite. I mean, he has a tragic. There's a tragic element to him, right? I mean, he's thwarted in love, and sometimes you feel so much sympathy for him also, no?
Yeah.
Is that what took you time to sort of figure out?
Yes, we can't do this VFX extravaganza and all. So the only things we have is like with the drama.
Yeah.
Now with the emotion.
Yeah.
We wrote in that way. So
also there should be a reason for someone to destroy something.
Right.
Every person can serve someone, or every hero serves someone. There's a definite need for a person to destroy something. So there should be emotional backing for him to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, otherwise he's just a psycho, and you can't identify with someone who's a psycho, right?
That's why we had to spend most of the time in developing our villain rather than developing our hero.
Right. That's so fascinating. Isn't it true that your villain is always much more interesting than your hero sometimes?
Yes.
It was not a really deliberate attempt to make villain more look fantastic. That was not that deliberate.
But it happened. Not that Tovino Thomas is any less, but Shibu's character, and of course the actor who plays him is outstanding. So we'll talk a little about that, Basil, because the casting was also, it has nothing to do with VFX, but a little bit about the casting. So sorry, to get back to you guys then. So this whole idea of having this villain who's relatable, that was also important.
Yeah.
And then how does the VFX and all come in to the
but Kaveree, can I come in here for a second on the character, if you don't mind, Anil?
No.
This is about, it's Joker is very much more important in the Batman story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why, I mean, you all could have easily based it on Joker, in the sense, not the Joker character, but the kind of, if you get what I'm saying.
Psychotic villain that you have. But, their villain is almost tragic, you feel...
No, I watched the film 3 times.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't get enough of it. I'll probably watch it another 2 times after this.
Great.
Yeah.
Sorry. So Arun, you were saying?
Yeah. So another thing is the power of the villain is this telekinesis.
Yeah.
So on the writing process, we were
really confused about how it will come out.
Right.
We didn't have any idea about how the VFX will work, and we had to depend mostly on the practical effects. So while writing also, we were keeping in mind about how it should be done, and whatever options that are available to do it. And we were actually thinking about it while writing too.
Okay, right. So you're both superhero fans?
Yes.
Yeah? Who's your favorite superhero? Apart from Minnal Murali? Batman, yeah. The Chris Nolan one, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. And in the trilogy, which is your favorite?
Second one, Dark Knight.
Good guys. So, Andrew, to bring you in here. So you have this setup. Then how do you come in and say, okay, this is where I'll use this. This is where I'll use this. How do you decide?
Yeah, so once Basil gave me an idea of the sequences, right, of each sequence in the film, whether it being the sequence where they're trying out their powers, or whether it's the chase that eventually leads onto the cliff. every time he explains something, I would imagine it in the most complicated way of depicting it, like, with the single shots without cuts, or, moving cameras. But then at some point, I would realize that Basil just wants that particular thing to happen. It's not about, making it look fancy. He wants people, it should be registerable to people. Like, people should understand, okay, this is what just happened. And that's what, ultimately adds on to the experience of watching the film. So once I got an idea of that, I started suggesting that I prefer everything in camera, like Pete Draper said in the previous session. There's nothing better than getting stuff on camera. So I for the first thing I suggested to Basil was, let's try whatever can be done practically. Let's do it practically. If it doesn't work and we end up spending like 2 days trying to get something to work, and we are obviously wasting money from production, then let's resort to CG. If not, let's try and keep it as real as possible. So that was the initial idea, and we tried that for a lot. In fact, I felt guilty telling Basil, let's just do it really and not do it in post. I used to feel that every time I tell him, no, let's try it once more, or let's make sure.
Said, then why do we need you, Andrew?
Yes. So because in the end of the day, I was very attached to the idea of this film. I was very attached to the idea of us having a superhero we can call our own. So I wanted it to look good as possible, and I knew that there was nothing more sincere than having it done on camera.
Right.
Yeah. So
is there a short breakdown that you can show us to, or something that just for the viewer?
Yes. Shall I share my screen? I do have a breakdown.
Yeah. And then I'd like to bring in Basil here after we see that.
Definitely.
Yeah. It'll be nice to see how it actually happens, the science behind the magic.
Yeah. So we have, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can.
I'll play the entire thing, and then we can come back to shots if we need to talk about that. All right.
കുഗ്രാമമേ കണ്ടോളു നിൻ കാലത്തിനും മുന്നേ ഇവൻ ആഭാസമോ ആഭാടമോ ആരോപണം ആവോളമായി ജീവിതം പുതു പുതു മോടിയിൽ മിന്നണം പല നിറമാടണം നാളെ ഇടവകയാകയും ഞെട്ടും തൊട്ടിടും കനവിലെ ഭൂമിയിൽ കണ്ണഞ്ചം സ്റ്റാർ പോൽ സ്റ്റേറ്റ്സിലെ സ്ട്രീറ്റിൽ ഞാൻ സ്റ്റൈലിലായി സിമ്പിളായി കറങ്ങിയിടവേ ഓണം കേറിടാ മൂലയിൽ ഒതുങ്ങിയിടും കീടങ്ങൾ കേൾക്കുവാൻ ഇന്ന് പുച്ഛം മാത്രമേ കുഗ്രാമമേ കണ്ടോളു നിൻ കാലത്തിനും മുന്നേ ആഭാസമോ ആർഭാടമോ ആരോപണം ആവോളമായി കുഗ്രാമമേ കണ്ടോളു നിൻ കാലത്തിനും മുന്നേ ആഭാസമോ ആർഭാടമോ ആരോപണം ആവോളമായി ജീവിതം പുതു പുതു മോടിയിൽ മിന്നണം പല നിറമാടണം നാളെ ഇടവകയാകയും ഞെട്ടും തൊട്ടിടും കനവിലെ ഭൂമിയിൽ കണ്ണഞ്ചം സ്റ്റാർ പോൽ സ്റ്റേറ്റ്സിലെ സ്ട്രീറ്റിൽ ഞാൻ സ്റ്റൈലിലായി സിമ്പിളായി കറങ്ങിയിടവേ ഓണം കേറിടാ മൂലയിൽ ഒതുങ്ങിയിടും കീടങ്ങൾ കേൾക്കുവാൻ ഇന്ന് പുച്ഛം മാത്രമേ കുഗ്രാമമേ കണ്ടോളു നിൻ കാലത്തിനും മുന്നേ ആഭാ പുച്ഛം മാത്രമേ കുഗ്രാമമേ കണ്ടോളൂ നിൻ കാലത്തിനും മുന്നേ ആഭാസമോ ആർഭാടമോ ആരോപണം ആവോളമാ കുഗ്രാമമേ കണ്ടോളൂ നിൻ കാലത്തിനും മുന്നേ ആഭാസമോ ആർഭാടമോ ആരോപണം ആവോളമാ കുഗ്രാമമേ കണ്ടോളൂ നിൻ കാലത്തിനും മുന്നേ ആഭാസമോ ആർഭാടമോ ആരോപണം ആവോളമാ കുഗ്രാമമേ കണ്ടോളൂ നിൻ കാലത്തിനും മുന്നേ ആഭാസമോ ആർഭാടമോ ആരോപണം ആവോളമാ കുഗ്രാമമേ കണ്ടോളൂ നിൻ കാലത്തിനും മുന്നേ ആഭാസമോ ആർഭാടമോ ആരോപണം ആവോളമാ കുഗ്രാമമേ കണ്ടോളൂ നിൻ കാലത്തിനും മുന്നേ ആഭാസമോ ആർഭാടമോ ആരോപണം ആവോളമാ
Superb. So, super. So, it's so much fun. So, Andrew, when you were doing all this, like how much of it did you actually then have to, do in VFX? How much of the movie? And talk a little about the whole idea of limiting your costs.
Yeah, so what you saw in this breakdown is pretty much all the important shots. So we had a few sequences that we didn't, keep into the reel, which was most of the wire removal stuff and sky replacement and lightning, stuff like that, which it's kind of obvious that if something was suspended with a wire, and we've obviously removed the wire, so we didn't add that into the show reel, but to the breakdown. But those were the sequences that we tried to save money on. So for example, when things in the villain Shibu's house are vibrating, which is newfound telekinesis power, we could do it in 3D, add objects, but the whole authenticity of having things vibrate on a table or in a room, I don't think we would have been able to match that in post. For one example is in Jurassic Park, there's a shot where there's a tumbler and the T-Rex is walking and there's water rippling in a tumbler. Is a great example, right? It's a great example of how something real can, actually stay in your mind for a long time.
Right. That was a real effect. That was a practical effect.
Yes, as far as I know, it's what they've done is they use some kind of string to match the frequency of a string to get the ripple right.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what they've done. So that was some in some ways that was an inspiration.
Yeah. And that's such an iconic scene, no?
Yes, which is why, right? So these things tend to stay in our mind. And trying to show things in one shot, like some examples are like, for example, when Jason, Tobino he's throwing those rings onto all those different prizes. I was on set with Basil, of course, getting ready to collect set data and and make sure, because in my mind those are all supposed to be VFX shots. But then Tobino was so sporty, he was like, I just try a few of them, and then we did a few. He didn't even take that many tries. It didn't take him many tries to get that.
Wow,
so just 4 or 5 takes, max altogether. The main one was when he didn't look at the steam cooker. He doesn't look at it, he just throws it without. So the one thing, the reason why that works as well is it's not a cut shot. We tried to show everything in single takes. And the only one where we did work on was where he threw all the rings onto all the objects, which seemed a little too much to ask from Tobino. So
He would have done it, I think, Basil, if you did.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that was the only one.
Also, Andrew, it also requires that power of acting. Like when, Shibu is sort of, showing that power in front of the rocks, I mean, what terrific acting it is. We underestimate that also.
Yes. I'd like to give our stunt choreographer, action director, Vlad Rimberg, some credit to that, because their team had worked on a really detailed previs, which I think gave a lot of input to both the actors. So they were able to watch that and understand, okay, so what's going to happen. And, from that, they could, feed off of what they could see from the previs. And they all had a clear idea of what's going to go on. Right. Especially for the climax.
Right. So, Basil, what has the reaction been from the whole world to Minnal Murali? And of course, there must be demands to a sequel, which I'm sure you must be working on. You better be working on, because there's a lot of fans out there. But again, talk about the whole idea of this Indian superhero with that Indian sense of jugaad, I mean, we are guys who can send people, who can send a spaceship to Mars in the budget of a Hollywood movie, as was so famously said. So that Indian, I mean, it's deeply embedded in us, right?
Yeah. Of course, India have enough culture, traditions, everything here. We have everything here. So it makes no sense for us to get a rip-off or get inspired from a Western movie or something like that. We cannot. Why do we have to go for that? We have our own.
Our own legends are full of special effects. Yeah, the whole of Mahabharata is like
epics,
foreign special effects.
Yeah, we have enough. So in every genre, whether it's a superhero or any other genre, we are trying to say we have one thing we have to first think about is like do it as grounded and rooted to our culture as possible, our mythologies, our traditions. The most rooted it is, the most original it will look if we do it in India. We just don't have to go for a movie like that in English or something. You don't have to do that in the West. Like you don't have to copy the West. Why Korean industry is so famous, so popular these days?
All over the world, yeah.
From last 15 years.
Yeah, they stick to their ethos, right?
Yeah, but still they are inspired from the West in terms of genre, and they do zombie movies, they do adventures, they do heist, but they do creature, they do superheroes, everything, but they stick to their nuances, their culture, their traditions. That makes them unique and which can be relatable for them as well as us. So that's the reason why they are so famous all over the world. So India too have that liberty of showing our own culture into our movies. Like the movies like Tumbad, for example, it's like a movie with a creature coming in an Indian mythological setting and tradition. Worked so well. We don't need to show the creature like Godzilla coming to the Mumbai city. You don't have to do that. To work a creature in a very Indian way, they have done so effectively well. So we have everything possible. So that's the first thing. Like even Tumbad was a big inspiration for us to go ahead with Minnal Murali. Like, see the movies which we have already done. We have the scope. Why don't we do it? Also, we have done like movies like in 1980s. My Dear Kutti Chetan. In Hindi, it's called Chota Chetan. It's a movie which was done in 3D in 1980s without any computer graphics. It was just practical effects throughout. We see the kids climbing through the walls, and that's the kind of setup we have seen in Inception, but which was done in 1980s already. The revolving set.
Yeah.
So that's all something we can think out of the box. We get more creative with the budget we have, because we know we have constraints, we have limitations. So we think more how to crack these things and make it more effective. So we have everything. We have talent. Even now these days we have budget, especially outside. I mean, like in Bollywood or in Tollywood, we have enough budget and talent. We have enough technicians. Now it's high time for us to go for global rather than sticking on to our...
Basil, what's the reaction been from your peers in Bollywood and Tollywood? Did you get calls saying, how did you do it? How did you manage this? Talk a little about
we had enough, so many of production houses, stars, everyone have called. And the first thing they have asked is like, how much budget, how much budget did you spend?
What is the budget, Basil? Tell me.
Something
ballpark.
Around 18, 20.
That's it.
Zone.
That's it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, people will spend that much on a song in Bollywood.
Yeah. So we know we have our own, but it's big in Malayalam perspective. Normally we do movies in 4 crore, 5 crore,
right.
2 to 5. That's the kind of normal budget we have. Even during COVID lockdown, we consistently made movies because we are very used to make movies with 50-member crew and very limited budget. Like in a caravan, five artists at least sit inside a caravan. We don't have separate caravan for a director, for an actor, for a cinematographer, nothing like that. It's the kind of process we go through every time. So we are used to that. So that's the reason why we have consistently made movies in the middle of lockdown saying only 50-member crew is allowed. Exactly. You are like, oh, that's normal for us. Why not?
And all your actors like make 4 movies a year and they do brilliant stuff, no?
Yeah, thanks to the actors as well. They are not just behind the stardom and how they look in the movie. It's all about the content they focus on. So that's the biggest grace we have with the actors. They depend mostly on the content. Now we become even more responsible because after COVID and with the OTT revolution, we are getting much exposure around the globe, around India, around the globe. So we are more we have that responsibility of making more creative and more responsible in terms of our content as well. So the actors are also equally with that. They are not behind the stardom or their action sequences or anything.
Tovino Thomas was telling me that you told him to look pudgy in the first part and then he had to develop muscles. And he said, if I develop muscles, I'll look like a villain. I don't want to look like a villain.
Yeah. See, for Tovino, for example, as you have said, like the villain is much more dominating in terms of everything. Still, Tovino was willing to do that as a hero because he would have said, since the villain is super dominating, I don't want to do this. He would have added corrections to the screenplay. He would have involved in the creative parts, like for his stardom or anything. But he wasn't that egoistic or anything. I don't see any actors doing that. They are all supportive in terms of the craft and creative side. So the technicians have the liberty to go and experiment with the actors. They see the characters instead of the stars here. So that's something great happening here.
All of you guys, since we have just about 4 minutes left, all of you guys, what's next? You, Basil, when is the next Minnal Murali? When does he return?
We are planning actually soon, but not so soon. But we'll definitely be doing it because why not? Because people have loved it, and now we have the scope of much more budget and scale and people watching it across India. So we have that liberty of showing it in a bigger scale. But still, we cannot spoil the reputation of the first part. So we have to be conscious in terms of writing again. We cannot just spend, as we have told, we cannot just spend money on everything. We just have to be consciously spent. We have to support the VFX team and the action team first of all. That's the basic thing that we have to do. For in Minnal also, for every shot, for every VFX shot, we have given enough time for our VFX team to get the lighting and everything done and everything. We are normally people see VFX team as like now the shot is done. Now it's like an extra burden for them to get the lighting and everything done. But we were also conscious about that. Even from our cinematographer Samir Tahir, he was also very conscious about this. Our action director, everyone also conscious about that. So we gave enough time for our VFX team to make sure after every shot to ask our VFX supervisors, is this enough for you? Are you okay? Are you happy? And only when he says okay, we say okay to a shot. So that support we were able to give to the VFX team. And looking forward, I think that's something we should also everyone should be looking forward in terms of a movie which is dependent on the VFX.
The VFX supervisor on set at every point.
On set at every point for every shot, and getting his advice and suggestions for everything possible. And also not only on the set, like when just from the initiation of the idea, we have to sit with the VFX supervisors in terms of pre-production, pre-visualizations, animatics, everything possible, storyboards. So that's how.
So what are the various stages, Basil? There's pre-visualization, then.
Yeah. First, we did storyboards for every action sequence or something. We needed VFX and everything. So we did a storyboard that to make sure what our vision is going to be to the VFX team. Now they see the and then we made animatics, like in a 2D animation. We see the entire sequences in 2D animation. We can see it because everyone have to be in the same page. We cannot because it's something unique, something new for this industry. So everyone won't get the vision right. So only some cream layer of the people gets it right. It won't work. But so people have to get that idea of what we are going to do. So that's why we made sure everyone, even the art department, the production, the cinematographers, everyone had the idea of what we are going to do. So we made some pre-visualization for most of the sequence and some live pre-visualization. That's what Andrew was talking about. The action director have done the climax fight sequences in a studio floor with a double artist, and he did VFX on that. He edited the sequences with proper music, reference music and everything. So just like months before the shoot, we had our climax sequence in our hand, what is going to be shot, and the VFX, dummy VFX done on that. So everyone was clear of what we are going to do. So coming to that, so art department was prepared for that. Cinematographer was prepared. Costume team, the makeup team, everyone was prepared for what we are going to take, and it was just a matter of shooting it on set. There was nothing like nobody was confused on set on the day of shoot, like what we are going to do, how we are going to go about it. We have done the technical checks and everything of how this going to be executed. There is one sequence where the superheroes are running fast. So superheroes can run fast. How to execute that in a wide shot? If we can show the abstract shots, like in a close-up shot, some swish is going out, and we are saying something fast has gone. That's kind of easy in VFX. But what if we have to show in a 3-4 seconds long shot where superheroes are running so fast? So to do that, Andrew and our assistant directors and everyone was in the research of how to crack this idea. So this thing which is already executed in West, named the Magic Carpet, where the superheroes will be running. I mean, the character will be running on top of a walkulator kind of a setting. You know, when you run on top of a walkulator, the relative speed will make you look faster. And to practically make that on a road. So we needed in the West they had smoother roads, they had smoother technical support. But since we are doing for the first time, our roads the roads got damaged. Even the magic carpets got damaged and everything. We did it in a plywood sheet. We attached 8 or 9 sheets of plywood sheets behind the truck. And then we pulled the truck and we asked the superheroes the characters to run on top of the truck, on top of the carpet. And since the roads was not good, the carpets got damaged, and then we had to open the shops to find like 800 small tires to get the crisis solved. And then we attached the tires under the plywood sheets, and then we pulled that work. And then when the moment we saw the superheroes running on top of the carpet and seeing them in extra speed, practically we are seeing it there. We are not seeing it in VFX. So that's the moment, like, okay, we have achieved it. We have cracked it. Until that point, we are not sure will this work or not. Are we doing it right or not? We are not sure about it because nobody have done that. So that's something we were like, every possible superhero is stunt in this movie. We don't know how it will come out. Only we'll see and we'll figure out, okay, this has come out. But that was kind of a effort we have done for, like, we planned it for 2 days, but it took 4 days to shoot the magic carpets. It's just 10 seconds in the movie altogether. But that gives that feel, that gives the impact, saying, okay, this is superhero. With the physics coming into play. And we have added some slow moving vehicles in the foreground to make them feel extra speed. So that's some relative velocity coming into play. So everything came into this basic 10th standard physics. And
are you a trained engineer like Tovino Thomas? Are you an engineer as well, Basil?
Yeah, I am an engineer.
So that helps, huh?
Somewhat, yeah. So these are all basic physics, I think. That's something everyone was very keen on. Also something in terms of moving the objects, like shivering the objects, like the Jurassic Park kind of a vibe you get. When you, how to move a CD, how to move a BD, how to move a cigarette, everything we have run in using motors and sometimes electromagnets, and we keep small magnets inside the cigarette, and we keep the cigarette on top of an electromagnet which is covered by a notice or some cloth, and when we pass electricity to the electromagnet, then the poles will change from south to north, north and south, and the magnet inside the cigarette will get confused. Okay, north or south, and then it will start jumping on top of the table. So that's kind of experiments we have done. Only when it was done, we knew, okay, we will get it. So many things like that. How to create an earthquake. We cannot just make an earthquake by shaking the camera. Earthquake inside a room. How to make that feel. We cannot shake the set. Even if it's shaking the set, the entire set will vibrate. But we needed objects one by one have to vibrate. Like this object is vibrating, then this object is vibrating, then the entire house vibrates. So for that, we cannot particularly focus on an object. So we attached motors to every possible object inside the room. So when we say, okay, instrument boards, then the guy with the motor will be switching on the instrument board switch. And then we say, okay, go with the tumbler, then we switch on the tumbler switch behind. So everything done, that was a very exciting process for us to get this done. Like when we get it, when we achieve it on set, we are seeing it practically. We are not waiting for the post-production or VFX. We are getting it done on the set itself. That was kind of a feeling like, okay, we are doing it right. We are achieving something.
It's like being a scientist in a lab,
Yeah, like Andrew's company name, like Mind and Einstein together. So
super.
It's something like that.
Wonderful. Sorry, we're running out of time. So Andrew, quickly, what's your wish for a new superpower for Minnal Murali?
A new power?
Yeah.
I think the powers he's got itself are more than enough to keep it going for some time. We did have a discussion about whether he should fly or not. But I think let's keep him the way we like him, as it is.
Right. And Arun and Justin, what next for you? What you're going to do with Minnal Murali now? Now that you've got a superhero in a lungi?
Minnal Murali, next we will writing Minnal Murali sequence. So that means another K60 draft.
So preparing for it.
Yeah, a little Hercules task, but yeah, second the Hercules, the task will be again the cracking the villain.
Yeah. Okay, you have to have a new villain. That's right.
Yeah.
One last point, Basil and all of you, the costume was so good. Just quickly talk a little about the costume.
It was very tricky to get into a costume because we are getting the costume. We are saying the story of a rooted superhero, and you cannot go for a Western style.
Yeah.
But we tried, but every time, especially in the climax, in the beginning, we knew for sure, like a lungi and something like a lungi to cover his face and a lungi to support his costume. That was very clear. But towards the end, towards the climax, he should grow as a proper superhero. For that, what kind of costume he should be having? So we thought about thinking out of the box, like getting a lungi again, coming into play. This thing, like. So many things from the very initiation of the idea to the last day, just a day before the shoot. We were thinking about how to find the climax costume. But to be very frank, we failed in that aspect, and he finally went ahead with the Western superhero costume, like a proper suit.
Cool. It looks
cool, definitely. Yeah, it looks cool. But I would have loved to have it with a more an Indian kind of costume in that. But we tried our best to get into something very original in terms of costume and the climate and the final costume as well. But it didn't work out because you cannot make it funny. If it looked funny, in the climax.
Yeah.
Everything you build, it's a dramatic end eventually. It's a very serious situation. And when the superhero is in a very funny, like a fancy dress competition on top of a clock tower, everything will be lost. Every build-up will be will go in vain. So that's the reason we resorted to the final, the very comfort zone, the safe zone of a Western superhero costume. But it looked cool.
Problem.
So thanks.
Yeah, it looks nice. Yeah.
Thanks
How long did you shoot? How long did you shoot for, Basil?
We shot for 111 days.
Wow, great.
In the middle of 2 COVID lockdowns, we had to face all lockdowns.
And all in Kochi?
Most of them in Kerala only, in a district called Wayanad. It's a hill station in Wayanad. And the climax sequence was shot in Karnataka, Hassan. Yeah, we had our set built and it was destroyed because of some issues.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. It was such a pleasure, and all the very best for Minnal Murali returns. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Kaveree. Thank you. Thank you, Binita.
Thanks, guys.